I gave the demonstration in every high school in the county, and to every women's group in the county, every home demonstration group in the county, every farm group in the county, and all of the business groups in Glasgow. When I came back married, there were so many men who sort of got a smile on their face and said, "Oh, I remember when you gave that demonstration." And the doctor dressed it, but I had this big bandage on my hand all the time I was in Chicago, and it was especially embarrassing because at the big formal dinners, there was always a waiter there to cut my meat. I remember once, the bag went under a wheel and scattered mail all over. And everybody in town was up picking up all the mail.
So did you give your quality egg demonstration at the women's club?
Oh, I gave that at every women's club in the county.
So
also every
explain how
men's
that
club
worked.
in the county and every there.
This was a
I love the
4-H
whole story.
demonstration.
Harriet Cushman was a poultry specialist extension, and she awarded a trip every year to the National 4-H Club Congress to a quality eggs demonstration winner. And the demonstration was to be educational, teaching about eggs and why things were true about them. And it was given in the county first, county competition. Then all of the counties who had demonstrations in eggs competed at Bozeman. And if you got a blue ribbon at the Bozeman Congress, then you came home and gave the demonstration to as many groups and as many people in your own county as you could. And Miss Holliday was a organizer, and my dad had a car, and I gave the demonstration in every high school in the county, and to every women's group in the county, every home demonstration group in the county, every farm group in the county, and all of the business groups in Glasgow. When I came back married, there were so many men who sort of got a smile on their face and said, "Oh, I remember when you gave that demonstration," I thought. But it was a good, it was a tremendous program because of the things you learned there. Like when I open a carton of eggs now and find an egg with the narrow tip up, I just am angry. Somebody doesn't know enough to put the down tip, and that affects the quality of the eggs. But
So they counted how many people you gave the demonstration to.
there were 553 people in Valley County who saw the demonstration. I'm sure many of them saw it more than once. And the girl in Missoula had actually given it to more people. But I gave the demonstration in the 30 days I had, I think it was 42 times. Wow. Which was, by the time I finished, I was a public speaker. I'm not fooling. I could get up and I could go on about eggs for hours. But the girl had a few more people, but it was a much smaller percentage than the Missoula County, than Valley County. And I remember this especially because I just saw her name in a picture of the delegates to the National Convention. The state office recognized this. They gave I got the trip to Chicago on the demonstration, but they named her the, I think, achievement winner or leadership winner of the state, so she got to go too. And it was a good feeling to know that they were on top of it that much. They knew she had put a lot of effort into it too. But it was a lifelong thing. And I'm sure all of you know enough to put your eggs with the narrow end down. It's very important. It really is.
So National Congress was in Chicago, and
Right.
you rode the train to get there.
Oh, yes. God, I mean, when you even think of planes at that time, no.
And what I remember about your National Congress was you had a velvet formal that you were trying to steam,
Oh.
and you ran the entire hotel out of hot water.
Well, I'm not sure about that. Well, my mother said you hang it on the rod in the bathroom and then fill the bathroom with steam. Yes. I think the one thing, and I think of it, you learn one thing in a lifetime and it lasts a lifetime. When we clean clothes at home in naphtha, some type of gasoline, and we didn't do many of them there, but some clothes were there. My mother had cleaned that in a kettle and come in, she'd dump that out, come in and rinse it out in the sink. And I came in and we had gas stoves. The match lit the stove and tossed it into this, and the naphtha was floating on enough of the water to flame up. And this kettle had a bail on it, so I picked it up with my hands to get it out of the house, and knew I couldn't. Just knew then this was wrong. And by that time, mother was on her way in, and she threw a rug over it and got it out. But the next day, I had one of those big blisters on these 3 fingers and was going to leave for Chicago. And the doctor dressed it, but I had this big bandage on my hand all the time I was in Chicago, and it was especially embarrassing because at the big formal dinners, there was always a waiter there to cut my meat.
You were just that fancy.
On your right hand.
Yeah, it was the right hand. I must have picked it up that way, but I can still see scars from that. But I went. And I was especially reminded of that when the night before Reen left for National Convention, she ran a needle into her foot, stuck on the bone, which we found out was the best place it could be, because if it had broken off free floating, they couldn't locate it with an x-ray. And when it was stuck on the bone, they located it and took it out. But she went to Chicago on crutches.
Oh.
So everybody else was waiting. And I still have an image of her, Billings Airport, coming down some kind of a ramp on her crutches with 3 or 4 boys around her, and each one of them had double or triple suitcases carrying them down. But that was really an experience that was great. All because of Harriet Cushman and her eggs.
And Iva Holiday and her organization.
Well, the demonstrations, she was great at it. But you did not come in and set your sack on the counter and take things out of it to do a demonstration. You had every move worked out. You didn't accidentally pick something up with your right hand because that would be passing in front of something and you went over it or over it enough with her correcting everything, but you learned to do one thing well. Okay, besides the Girl Scouts here, our troops went down to the Boy Scout Island, which they no longer use, but in order to get there, we had to take go over by boat. And we camped there with them, and we also,
With the boys?
no, the boys weren't
I
there.
thought not.
No, we went down to the Boy Scout Island at separate times. See, that threw off. But most of the camping after I got into high school was at the Pines, and that was just my home camp. I did both the Girl Scout camps and the 4-H camps there. The first 4-H camp we went to was up someplace on the Porcupine, and that was a completely primitive camp. Tents, campfires, food. When we got to the Pines, we had a cook, and we did have lights until a certain time every night when they turned the generators off. That was something somebody else asked me about. Have you found out anything about the generator in Hinsdale?
A little bit. Bob was actually talking about it earlier today.
Good. Okay.
Talking about
yeah,
the large flywheel and such.
He remembered it.
Mhm.
I didn't remember. We did have lights by the time I arrived, and we didn't get a phone though until we were in high school. What was it Joe said? She remembered everybody is doing it. You know this. Yeah. But Mother made a deal with us. If we saved $5, and I don't know if it was on the grocery bill or the electricity bill, when we saved that we could get a telephone. And we eventually got a telephone.
So what was the first telephone in town? If you were in high school, it would have been at least 45. Surely the
Well, that was
doctor
in our
had-
house.
I know,
Yeah.
but it must have come to town before then.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody has it, Mother.
So did you guys have to go somewhere else to use a phone if you needed to call out? Or
You
just-
know, I really don't remember ever needing to call out. I remember using telegraphs. And they came up from the
Depot.
depot. You know, that was another thing I thought of. The mail system was a fast mail train, once a day in each direction. And the mail was put in pouches that were big at the bottom and big at the top with a belt in the middle. And these were hung on a crane, long pole hook, and that they had to be out of the post office at a certain time every evening. And when the fast mail went through, it had an arm on it that would catch this and take it into the mail car. And then it was, I suppose they had to get a pouch out to the by Saco. So anything going out of Hinsdale to Saco had to be sorted by a clerk on the mail car. And I remember once something didn't work right, and the bag went under a wheel and scattered mail all over. And everybody in town was up picking up all the mail from as far as, and with the train going that fast, it was scattered. I remember it going to the east of the depot, so it must have been going that direction. But every piece of that mail had to be accounted for. And they had postal inspectors in making sure it was, and it wasn't that it was anybody's fault. It was that the mail was that important. But I also remember many years later getting a letter that had a sticker on it that said over the dirt that it had been in a plane crash. So they had checked, gathered everything up they could and delivered what they
Wow.
could and identified it as having come from there.